This week on The Grid, we're talking about our photography goals. We want to hear from you. We want to know your short-term and long-term goals. Plus, we're here with the man, the myth, the whatever he wants to go by, Moose Peterson, and we'll be talking about his goals too. So hold on to your hats. It all starts right now.
The Grid is brought to you by Tamron. Check out their 28 to 75 millimeter f2.8 lens. It's for Sony full-frame mirrorless. It's awesome. Go to tamron-usa.com.
And ProPhoto, the light shaping company. Check out the ProPhoto B1X, powered all the right places. Go to proPhoto.com/US.
And Platypod, the tripod alternative that is changing the world. Everybody has a Platypod. You should too. Go to platypod.com.
All right. Hey, Grid Nation. We are joined by a man, the myth, and
whatever he wants to call himself. There we go.
And that I asked Moose, what do you want to call you? He said, whatever you want to call me.
Whatever you want to call me.
Okay, whatever you want to call yourself.
You know, I'm used to mud. You know, I'm used to Moose. If I go to a restaurant, it's either Moses or Moss because they can't spell moose. So,
there you go.
You know, I go to anything, really.
Awesome.
So it works.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming by. Yeah. And you were on a webcast earlier. That was awesome.
It was a great webcast. Yeah. And of course, you know, every time I come to the mothership, as I refer to K1 here, it's always great because the creative juices get flowing. You have to think about other things. So thanks for having me once again.
And I'll tell you, this webcast today, I guess I was on there with Moose, and Scott and Moose and I were on there, and Moose was talking about his top 10 locations to shoot wildlife photography. This is something that I know Scott's been pushing you to do.
It's on record. Yeah,
but it was really cool. And then not only that, you're doing an awesome class for Kelby One members about wildlife photography, talking about the science of it, right?
And Kuna, that was, as you know, your idea of what you said the members needed.
Yeah.
And I was pleased to do it because it's a topic that, in all honesty, is so important.
Yeah.
Yet doesn't get asked, doesn't get approached.
It's the one thing everybody will ask you the settings, but they don't want to study the subject sometimes.
Right.
And the photos that you get, I can tell, and watching some of the class and then looking at your images, it is a testament to knowing your subject, right? When you know your subject, you can bring photos out that you will never be able to do if you just walk in blind. You can know your camera in and out, but if you really know the subject and you're shooting, you can get the images that really you're desiring to create, right?
Not only all those things, but the most important thing is that you know your actions are not adversely affecting that critter or its home.
That's true. Yeah, definitely.
They already have enough pressures without us coming in and doing more damage or more pressure. So, and to be honest with you, the last 6 weeks up until doing this class, Sharon can tell you, I don't want to say panic mode, but pretty darn close to it. I kept sending an email to Christina like every other day. I'm sorry, I don't have the outline yet. I'm sorry, I don't have the outline yet. Because I sit there and do an outline. And I go, that doesn't make sense. You know, it doesn't make sense. You know, because it had to be a class that gave the information people want.
Yep.
In a way they didn't go, you know. So it was. I appreciate the challenge. It made me think about a lot of things, and it was all good.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's where you've really dedicated most of your life, right, to really telling the story of these animals.
Exactly.
And really conserving the environment, for these animals. So it's really cool that you were able to share that, or that you're sharing that information with our members.
I appreciate you giving me the forum. It was a great class to do, and I think it turned out really well. So I'm pleased.
No, and I watched some of it. It's going to turn out really well. I'm guarantee you, if you're a Kelby One member and you're into it, you're going to love it. So definitely check it out. Check out that webcast too. If you're a Kelby One member, you can go check that out. It'll be up. The replay will be up tomorrow. But now kind of moving on to the topic. But before we get to the topic, one thing I did want to mention is that Scott is out he's out today, but he is going to be in a seminar next week. Over it is Kelby One Live. If you go to Kelby One Live, you can see he's going to be in. So we have Atlanta, Georgia on the 18th. And then he's also going to be in Seattle, Washington next Wednesday on the 20th. So if you're in Atlanta or Seattle, want to join him for his Shoot Like the Pro, or it's not the Shoot Like the Pro, it's the Ultimate Photography Crash Course, which is an awesome, it's like shooting like a pro on steroids, right? So it's an awesome day. People are loving it. Lot of great feedback around it. We were just talking about it at lunch.
Yeah, it's a great day. I can't see how anybody would not get there.
Yeah.
At the very least, you're going to come out totally energized.
Yep.
And when it comes to your photography, I mean, that's what you need. You got to be energized, and this is the place.
Yep.
Scott does a great job.
But our topic for today, so I wanted Moose to kind of kick it off here. What we want from you guys is to tell us your short-term and long-term photography goals. One of the things that we were talking about is we all have to have goals in life, right? We always have to have something to achieve to, especially with our photography. If we're just aimlessly going at this and not having targets to hit, we really can't measure our success. Because really, at the end of the day, we always kind of measure ourselves against other people, but we really need to measure ourselves against our own results, right?
That's where it starts and ends with us.
Right.
Right. I mean, it might be a big loop in the process, but that's the bottom line. I mean, there's a bunch of some of my phone's ringing, some people who are with me quite a bit. They are used to me saying, so what's your goal? I start my workshops. I ask people, what's their goal for just that week? And, we're visually storytelling. And in order to do that, we have to be able to, and first, kind of verbalize it in our own minds. What is we want to do with our cameras? And if we can't do that in our own minds, don't be surprised your photographs come back missing something, because without seriously that idea or that spark, how can you expect to really put it into your photograph? So I think it's really important to have goals, both short and long term.
Yep.
And as a self-employed photographer, I have to survive by that. That's what, every morning I have to be able to get up. You have to be, give yourself every day self-assignments to keep moving that ball forward.
And don't you think if you set those goals, you actually not just survive, but you actually thrive by that? That's what motivates you to get up. That's what motivates you to do stuff.
As long
as
you don't give yourself an out.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
People like today I got to go take the dog to the vet. And then, so that's my whole day. And pushing yourself. I mean, I was brought up that if you want to play hard, you have to work hard. And I love playing hard. If you watch the webcast, I love ice cream. So to make those things happen, got to have goals.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good, definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Play hard, work hard. That's what we do.
That's what we do.
Yeah. So first, let's start off with our long-term goals, right? So what is our long-term goal? So you had recently a long-term goal. So we want to hear from you guys what your guys' long-term goals are with photography. Like, why are you doing this? But Moose, to kind of kick it off, kind of set the tone. You had a long-term goal that recently came up that you've been at work for decades, right?
For decades.
All right. So tell us about it.
Well, so just like anybody else in photography, I start off with a minimum budget, of course, and minimum gear. And most importantly, minimum experience. And I was told all these places I should go to shoot and to experience critters, and I couldn't do it. So I've had these places, these goals, people call it a bucket list. They're always my goals to go and do this experience. And if I'm lucky enough, come back with photographs. One of them was St. Mary's up in Newfoundland. It's a different type of paradise in Shangri-La that 40,000 birds, one species, call this place home for a few months each year, and the rest of the time they're at sea. And it's a bird, the northern gannet. It's got a 6-foot wingspan. So the wingspan is as long as you and I are tall, and the body's 3 foot. I mean, it's a huge, huge bird that flies with such little effort. And you just, when you look at them, they just love. You cannot help but think they just absolutely love flying. So it was a week of absolute splendor. And, you have goals, whether it's short-term or long-term. And those goals, point blank, sometimes they're really hard to get to. Sometimes when you reach them, you're afraid that the ending is not going to be as good as the journey. And St. Mary's blew apart all those things, expectations, ideas, preconceived, everything, and blew them out of the water with just such splendor that, I'm saying, okay, I've been rewarded. Now let's get on to the next set. because it was so amazing. At the same time, I know that if I had gone to St. Mary's originally when I was told this, a couple of things. One, in the days of film, and that would have been a whole nother constricting process compared to digital. But two, my skill base would not have been up to the challenge of bringing back the story of St. Mary's when I first started. So I had to get there in many different ways.
Cool. Do you want to show some images from it?
I'd be happy to.
Yeah. Because I
you
think
know,
the images, because again, this is a long-term goal. This is something that you've poured your heart into, and even the experiences that you've had throughout your career have led you to this point, right?
My whole life.
And that's
yes.
the one thing with these long-term goals is you're actually there's so much blood, sweat, and tears in the photos throughout the years, you know?
Throughout the years. I mean,
Yeah.
It's on my website. Go to my notebook.
Yeah.
And
No, he's saying he's printing up pictures on his screen,
it's on my computer.
on his computer.
Number 2. Anyway, yeah, it was, there's a couple of things going on that.
Try to reconnect into it. I think we might have lost it.
Oh, my bad, huh? Okay.
Try it again. There, they got it again. All right, we're good now. There we go.
Hey!
Boom, magic.
Yeah, these old Macs, what can I tell you? So what you're seeing here is St. Mary's. A couple of things. Had to have the gear, and I had to actually earn the money to have the gear. I'm shooting with a 180 or 400 and a D5. It's not an inexpensive place to get to. And then you're literally on the edge of the Atlantic. You're almost as far east as you can travel in North America. And we're talking about 40,000 of these amazing birds. And it's not a bird made for perching. It's made for flight. And you've got a continual cacophony of sounds of the ocean, of the birds calling, and the wind that's there as soon as you get there, and it pushes you off the rock at sunset. And you can't help but look at these guys and just not be in awe of their flight abilities. They are pelagic birds. They spend 8 months out of the year, 9 months of the year at sea. They don't hit the land. They come only long enough to raise the kids. The kids are there, and then their first flight off the rock is their last flight. They go straight out to the water where they spend another month. So they leave weighing more than the adults, and they mate for life. And the thing is that, they come on the rock, they have their kid, and as soon as they leave the rock, they don't see the mate till they come back 8 months later. And they have to,
Find each other, yeah.
They got to find each other, right? And it's not like the male and the females look different, right? I mean, they all look the same. It's just this staggering thing. But then you watch this bird with a 6-foot wingspan just flying effortlessly through the air. And then I wanted to come back and talk about the fact that these guys fly their whole time.
That's cool.
Their life is the ocean. And they spend their life at sea and doing, basic things of fishing, sleeping, all that stuff on the water the whole time. So think about the North Atlantic, right? Think of the storms, the things the icebergs, all those things that cause havoc for shipping. These guys are living out there during that entire thing. They don't come to land during those times. They got those big, huge waves that crash over the bow. They're out there doing bird stuff, whatever gannets do. Of course, that size, the kids are that big when they leave. It's just a wonder. So to bring it all back, bring up those goals I had for those decades, how do I talk about them flying over the Atlantic? So I waited, in the shots for me were later in the afternoon where I had that background that sat there and told a story of this bird in the Atlantic.
That's beautiful.
So thank you. And it was something I worked towards for decades.
Right. Well, and you probably, even studying, seabirds and how they act, and even like having to know how they're going to approach you and how they're going to land and all that stuff. And that's some stuff you definitely went into in the class that you did. But that's the kind of stuff that I think, again, a lot of people don't talk about, but it's so important to getting photos like that.
You actually, for this case, you had to think about wind and how things fly in wind.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Well, that probably helps with your aviation, right?
It's corals back and forth.
Yeah.
Because if they're coming, they don't flap their wings, right? At 6 foot, they're going into this colony.
Yeah, they're gliding, right?
They kind of glide and then just kind of drop.
they've kind of stall themselves.
They stall. It's, you can see in this picture, their secondaries, they're stalling the wind to do what they're doing, just like an aircraft.
Isn't that cool?
And then watching that, you knew that this was either going to drop down on its nest or just keep on going and make the next circuit until it could actually get there.
Well, that's awesome. And so, that's what we're talking about today is like, what do you have for those goals, right? So we want to hear from you. I've seen some comments coming in. We are going to have to take a break now, but when we come back, we want to talk about our long-term goals. So tell us, what are your long-term goals? We'll talk about some of that stuff when we get back, and we'll give we got some shout outs to give when we get back. But we'll see you guys back here in just a few minutes. Here talking.
Is the tripod dead? Sure, a tripod works for basic shots, but who wants to be basic? You don't need basic, you need blockbuster. And that's a job for a platypod. The platypod is your go-anywhere, do-anything flat tripod base. Its compact design helps you discover unique angles that you could never reach with a typical tripod. So, whether you're bringing up baby, driving Miss Daisy, or with your beasts of the southern wild, you can capture big-budget footage and stills for a fraction of the time and money. So go ahead, shoot the next Rocky or Birdman. Or on the waterfront, the platypod is equipped to grip uneven surfaces and hang from just about anything. When tripods go low, the platypod goes lower. Its flat base reaches the lowest possible angle, resulting in truly inventive shots that can't be replicated with traditional equipment. And if you feel like adding a dramatic overhead angle, the platypod has you covered. Just strap it or screw it in, and you're ready to go within minutes. The platypod is constructed from aircraft-grade aluminum and titanium. Yeah, the stuff Air Force One is made of. So it's durable enough to travel with you from Chinatown to Casablanca and everywhere in between. If you only take the tripod, the story ends. You wake up the next morning with nothing but basic footage. Or you could take the platypod to a museum, or on an elevator, or strap it to a tree, or hanging on a bench at church, or put it on the ground and get incredible blockbuster footage. Who are we kidding? You should totally take the platypod. The tripod is not dead, but it needs a sidekick, the platypod.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by B&H Photo, the professional source since 1973.
Part of the process.
Part of the process. All right, so we are back and we're talking goals. We've got a bunch of shout outs here. First one actually we have is Rami Kazami from up in Canada saying, hey, from a freezing Canada. And, I was talking on the break, Ramson's an interesting one because recently we were talking and he's got a short-term goal of, hey, I'm going to kind of free myself and get out on the road and actually live on the road is a short-term goal because he wants to invest into, I just wanted to be doing photography. I want to be where photography's at. I mean, more power to him. I don't think I could do that. I definitely couldn't do that. But that's the thing is you got to have those goals, right?
That's not only a goal, that's a lifestyle though.
It is.
I mean, that's
it's one of those things where you're going to have to, you definitely have to embrace it.
Being someone who's been on the road for 80 days and only been home 6 of, out of those 80.
Yeah. It does wear on you a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And actually Rami has he's got a workshop. We were just talking about it. He's got a workshop coming up in, it's the end of January in Canada, up near Jasper, Banff, those areas. beautiful in the winter. I mean, you've
Beautiful place.
obviously been. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous
Definitely.
locale. Yeah.
It's awesome. And in the winter,
Well,
it's
good for him.
It's so cool with the, the pristine snow and all that.
Since I live in snow, I'm a fan
you're
of
probably,
it. Yeah.
it's really cool. But yeah, you can check it out. He's over at RamyK.com. But yeah, so we have Mark from Skegness saying hello. We got Cheryl from Canada, another one from Canada. Then we got Susie Q from the Eastern Shore of Virginia.
As in from the song?
Yep.
Cool.
I was actually just in the Eastern Shore a couple weeks ago of Virginia, up way up on the border there by Wallops Island. And then Becky G from sunny Goodyear, Arizona. David R from Central North Carolina.
And there's Deb again.
There's Deb from a mild California.
Thanks, Deb.
John E from Rochester. Sasha is saying hey there from Germany. And then we got Mike saying hi from Phoenix. We got Ronnie saying hi again. She was in our webcast earlier.
Yes, she was.
Amy, hi from Boston. T-Bones, greeting from Southern California. And Kathy from Colorado. We got Wayne from Denver, and we keep on going. So now let's get into some
well, thanks to all those
goals.
members.
Yeah.
That is great to see those guys, and I'm grateful for you guys
Oh, yeah.
stopping in. It makes it all worthwhile here and on the community. So I mean, that's what it's all about.
Well, and that's one of the good points we talked about in the community. You're jumping into the community a lot.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
I am too. We're constantly on the community, and that's one thing as a Kelby One member that's really cool is that we have that community where members can talk to members can talk to instructors. You can ask questions about what you're experiencing, which is really cool.
Well, I don't think knowledge has any value unless you share it.
Yep. Oh yeah, definitely. That's what we were talking about that earlier.
Yep.
So George, he's saying my long-term goal is to get into galleries.
Okay.
And that's a good long-term goal, right?
So here's the thing with goals. I was taught long ago that while that's a great goal to put it out there, but that goal doesn't give you any type of personal roadmap to do that. So galleries is a broad term, right? Is it brick and mortar? Is it online? Is it with one genre?
So you're wanting them to get more specific?
Well, what's the purpose of a goal? It's to help you move forward, right? So, for example, let's just talk about getting into the practicalities, getting into a gallery. You have to find, if we're going to go brick and mortar, that wall space. You're going to have the images, right? That's what people think. But people don't think about the fact, I got to pay for matting. I have to pay for framing. I have to pay for hanging. I have to pay for placards. Am I going to have all verticals, horizontals? How much space do I mean, so the gallery itself could be the umbrella, but for that goal to be one that you can actually work towards, how do you do that? Am I going to produce an image every month for this gallery? So it's so broad. It's kind of like saying, my goal is to take better pictures. I can't believe that would be a goal because every time I pick up the camera, that's the desire, right?
So you want to be a little bit more specific, like you're talking about, and a little bit more where there is steps to getting
a
there.
direction.
Yeah.
Every day I get up, I have to have some sort of direction I'm going to do that day, and then in the short term and long term, to keep moving that ball forward. Otherwise, it gets stagnant. You got to realize that photography, if it doesn't stay fun, you don't do it. Photography becomes a chore. What do we do with chores?
Yeah.
We put them off. So, it's a tricky thing, but the thing about goals is when you reach that goal, it's a high that only gets better if you have ice cream and a check.
Yep. There you go. So we're getting into some short-term and long-term here. So Glenn saying my goal is to shoot more models. So again, I mean, that's good to, shoot more models. But again, I think you'd want to, let's get more specific with it,
Well, okay. So shooting models is very generic. First of all, what kind of models? Right? Is it just shooting a person on a sweep? Is it a lifestyle?
Do you sometimes set kind of higher specific goals in order for yourself to kind of achieve steps towards that goal? Like, for example, with models, if you were to say, like, my goal is to shoot, I don't know, a runway model in New York City for a client, or for a job.
That would be
that it's kind of high. So I'm achieving, I've got to achieve smaller steps to get there.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Example is my aviation.
Okay.
All right. I could say I'm going to go photograph planes. That's my goal. Photograph more planes this year. How are you going to do that? Where are you going to do that? So my goals was to actually get into more specific genre of aircraft. And then in that, how am I going to photograph just the plane flying, the whole story of that plane, the whole history of that plane? And then, but all that is, what am I going to do with that when I get done? That's, all that to me is part of it. And that's how I kind of go about working this.
Cool. All right. So John E. From Rochester saying, short-term goal is to get my pet portrait business up and running, my retirement job. And long-term is to photograph every place different than it's been done before. Right. So again, having a short-term goal of getting a business up and running, that's
a lofty goal too.
Yeah. And
that in itself, yeah.
But it's also a great goal to have. Right?
It is. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because that'll definitely keep you motivated. Right.
Well, there's a monetary, reward at the end. And there's nothing wrong with, that incentive, because that definitely helps you keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the long-term goal of, I actually think I like these kind of long-term goals. And I actually have a very similar one on more of a short-term basis of photographing every place differently than it's been done before. And that is, a lot of times I approach assignments that I'm in anymore. And maybe, like I had a long-term goal. I'm posting about 5 years. That 5 years ago, I saw a rocket land, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to be part of this. I got to help. I got to be part of this. How can my long-term goal is, how can I communicate to people that this stuff is going on right now? And how do I communicate to people that we can be part of it and motivate people to do this, right? That became a thing of, I need to use my skills with imagery and being able to create images to communicate the wonder and the amazement that's happening in our space programs.
So then when you started off to go photograph your first launch, your goal wasn't just to photograph the first launch when you went to photograph the first launch, was it?
No, I mean, the end goal was actually to get to very close to where I am now. And that is where I've got to the point where I've aligned myself with people that are more about the inspiration and the wonder and the beauty of what's going on than about the newsworthiness of it.
So when you started out, you didn't even probably know that was something you needed to do.
No. At first you're just thinking, well, I just got to figure out how to shoot these things. And I just got to figure out access, and I just got to figure out how to get there. And then you start going, well, wait a minute. But then as you go down the path, my short-term goals started changing, where I started shooting stuff differently. And I started aligning myself with people that would give me a little bit more freedom and and then I got to the point where I was starting to do stuff that nobody else was doing.
So that's the beauty.
And then you're getting picked up by people that are going, I want you to do it because like this comment here, that you're shooting it that it's never been done before. Or you're doing something that nobody's ever seen before.
Well, that's why you have short-term and long-term.
Yep.
The short-term give you the direction, and then it's flexible enough that if you see, like you did, you need to go left when you thought maybe you should go right, you went left and kept going, but you had that end goal to keep giving you a direction to go.
Yes, you have that wild, and that's where I say, like, my wild long-term end goal is I just want us to get off this planet and get to other planets, because I just think we're better as we're better as humans when we are exploring and we are adventuring and we're going out and we're doing something cool rather than just sitting here doing nothing.
So
kind of like
your goal wasn't just to take pictures of rockets. You didn't say that.
No.
So that comes back to our original point, where you have this really generic goal. It doesn't really move you down. You had a passion to go with that, and you had a direction. You might not have had the right words to put with that, but you didn't say, I just want to take better rocket pictures. Look what you've done in 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
Right. So instead of just being a person that shows up, now you know the people. You're the people want to hang with, and now you don't even want to go to just the generic brick building and shoot on top of it. You're trying to find the park that the ranger says you can't be here. You got permission.
Yeah, but sometimes that doesn't always work out in life, because it definitely didn't work out.
You think goals mean there's a guarantee? Doesn't work that way.
When we get back, we'll talk about that, because I did have an experience this week where I got everything approved. all approved. Then you just meet the wrong person at the park services
Who didn't get the memo.
and didn't get the memo, and you don't get the shot.
Yeah.
But hey, that's life. That's why you have the goal of doing it.
Hi, I'm Larry Becker, and I've been a camera reviewer for years. I've also been a camera trainer, and I have more than a dozen classes over at Kelby One. And I couldn't be more excited about my latest class because it's about the brand new camera I just bought, the Canon 90D. This is an amazing camera, and it's packed with all kinds of power user features, like 32 megapixel images and burst capture rate of an amazing 10 frames per second. And over on the video side, you can capture uncropped 4K video. You can even shoot full HD video at an amazing 120 frames per second. My new Kelby One class is for pros and beginners alike. It's all about helping people who have never shot anything but a smartphone or high-end pros. And I get everybody up to speed fast. Trust me, this is not a camera class like what you've seen online, where you feel like somebody's reading a manual to you. This is a class that I would teach when I just show my friends what to do with their new 90D. It's time for better pictures and video. It's time to check out my latest class exclusively on KelbyOne.com.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by Canon.
All right.
Whoa.
All
That's
right.
spooky.
Well, we are back and we're talking about goals. So yeah, let me talk about that. So, I was building up to, I've been doing this rocket photography. I've been
Which is gorgeous.
trying to push the boundaries. Here's some shots. Like this is some shots from this weekend. So let me try. There we go. So this was interesting because I took a single shot, and then I took this is 7 of those shots stacked up through Photoshop using the statistics action to statistically kind of average out, so it kind of creates a long exposure effect without a long exposure. Because a lot of times it's very hard to do a long exposure with a rocket because
Tell them why.
the rocket is rumbling the ground like an earthquake. So
Those little
it's
details, right?
Very hard.
Okay.
So anyways, there's that shot. And then
It's great too.
there's something like this. We had high grass. They didn't mow the grass. So we had this high grass. So I got down into the grass and shot up through the grass. Stuff like that. Then here, just trying to do some details with some depth and dimension. This is one of those pads there's not a lot of room to work with. So you kind of find
Wait.
these
Don't go any
little-
further. So first of all, you took the shot, but you thought about two things you just told me about that they should know about. What did you think about when you took that shot? You were thinking about,
Well, when I framed this shot, which is what's interesting, right? When I framed this shot, the rocket was not even there.
right?
Which is the other hard part, that when you're like the birds, you get into these studying the subjects and all that stuff. The rocket isn't even there. It's actually over. So I knew where it was going to go up because I've studied these things and know these things, but I wanted to be able to shoot to where you saw the front lightning tower, you saw the rocket, then you saw the back lightning tower. You had those layers.
But tell them the 24 hours before the launch, you're up doing this.
Yep.
So you're looking at an empty stage.
Empty stage, yeah.
Your knowledge is telling you where the rocket's going to go.
And I got to find, I know places where I need to lock that focus, and I got to lock the focus, get all the settings ready, put on dew heaters like we were talking about. You put on hand warmers.
Explain to them what you're talking about.
Yeah. So you put hand warmers around the lens.
24 hour.
24-hour hand warmers. So that way we don't have to worry about it passing through the dew point, the front of the lens.
So in other words, we're keeping it warm enough so there's no water drops or crud on that. And then of course, and you expose to tell the story. That's important.
Yeah. Well, that's what, with that, like even with shots like that, I'm actually exposing for the detail on the flame. And you can see that that's in the middle of the day. But you can see when you start exposing for the day in the middle of the flame, that's where, normally a news shot would just be the rocket kind of more like this, where the rocket's going up.
Right.
That's the shot. In fact, the only
I love that
difference
shot. That's
the only
very cool.
difference would be on the newsworthy shot, or the news shot would be the camera would be at eye level, because they just keep the camera at the eye level. Boring, shoot up, rockets in the shot, no problem. I, on the other hand, I don't have behind the scenes shot, but I'm actually laying down on the ground with the platypod, like focusing my camera. I think one of my friends took a picture of me because they're like, "You look like an animal in the jungle," like trying to like frame something up.
So when you started off, your goal was not to lay in the grass.
No,
and
not
to
at
take
all.
7 images and use analytics to bring them together, let alone exposing for the highlight and the range of light, bringing back the rest of it. So your goal, you wouldn't know to even put that in the goal, but you had to get to that point.
You have to get to that point. Exactly.
And that's what goals are good for, because come on, pull up the image. It's a gorgeous image he's got here. Don't hide this stuff.
Yeah. So then
this is so cool. I mean,
like this is an interesting one, because this is one where there's me and a couple other guys are starting to. We haven't seen anybody doing this yet, and it's becoming to where we're starting to do it. And now I think then it's going to get out. But we're actually exposing wider shots with the engine detail and the flame detail. Like you can see in there the flame and the engine.
Oh yeah.
Like there's so much to getting those settings right and studying how it can happen. I mean, to the point of which I only know this can happen. This shot can only happen in the morning. It cannot happen in the afternoon. So we're waiting for morning launches to do these things.
So
we're waiting.
So bring it back to a goal, though, right? If you want to start a Rocket Man business, you can't just say, I want to start a Rocket Man business when I retire, because you've got to do all this to get to the point when you retire. You've got so much dialed in, it actually is a business.
Yeah, well, and then you're able to do stuff that kind of pushes outside the limits. Like this was one that was interesting because this is actually right before it went into the sun. So that it was going to pass near the sun. And we knew this, but I had known that. So I was writing my exposures as I'm going. And this is like clamp down my ISOs pushed all the way down. F-stops pushed all the way up, and I'm tracking that rocket, and I can get the transonic. So you can see that the rocket is actually going transonic here right before it flew through the sun.
Yeah.
And you can even see the flame detail and stuff like that. Like these are things that just if you're just pointing it and not thinking and not knowing what's going to happen, you're not going to get these shots.
Correct.
Right. So that's kind of that's what I consider that's a boring shot, right? Like there's just a shot of the rocket going up. But okay, so this was the shot I was actually going after. So this is the sun, and you can actually see that little speck down here. This is Mercury sitting right down here. And so me and two other guys, we started talking, and you could tell we were all kind of probing each other, like, hey, Mercury's going to be transiting the sun during the Monday launch. And I was like, yeah, I do. That like there's a possibility it might pass through. I'm like, yeah, I do. And they're like, you thinking of doing it? And I was like, yeah, maybe. Are you thinking about doing it? And like, yeah, that'd be awesome, right? If we could do it. So we started doing the math. So then we started getting like all nerdy about it and started doing the math. And we have this, program that will show us trajectories and stuff like that. And the physics of it. So we knew the GPS locations we would have to be to make the shot happen. Unfortunately, there's only one spot that, without being in swampland, which you can't do around the Cape because of restricted areas, there was a road that we could be on. So we contacted the National Park Services because it was on the park. Got to where they were like, yes, as long as you're on foot and you're not in a vehicle, you could be in those places. So me and two other guys were walking out to it, and we're walking out to the spot, and then we got a park ranger that it didn't matter what we said, what name we told them, they just they weren't going to let it happen. So it was one of those things where you had the goal, this is what the shot I'm going after, I'm going to differentiate myself, I'm going to shoot this, but you just physically couldn't do that. Now, we still went on with the shoot, and that's where what I ended up doing was actually compositing in what the shot would have been, and that's what it would have been because I took the same millimeter length. I was at 800 millimeters. That's 800 millimeter shot of the moon or sun, and that's an 800 millimeter shot of the rocket 7 seconds before it passed in front of the sun, and then kind of composite. But that was the shot we were going after, and we spent all this time. But sometimes your goals don't come to fruition.
They don't. And that's
sometimes you don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I've got to wait because of that park ranger for 13 years before that shot will happen. It possibly even happen again, which it probably won't unless Elon Musk gets to the point where he's launching rockets every 24 hours.
Right.
So we'll see. But anyways, I digress.
But
there we go.
No, I mean, that's the whole point of this is that these goals push our photography, and with that outside motivation, we become better. Doesn't mean you're going to get success, but you will become better.
Yes, you definitely got to push yourself. So Cheeky Nando is saying, one of my long-term goals is helping others to enjoy photography and get them excited about it. My other long-term goal will be able to create images that will outlive me. Right? So I really like that long-term goal of if that's going to motivate you to make those pictures, right? Because that's a very much a broad goal.
But you start that whole sentence with if,
because sometimes if it can get too broad,
right?
Like we know, if we can get too broad, then you're like, well, I mean, you gotta put.
You're overwhelmed.
Yeah, you gotta put some specifics on it, right?
Well, everybody knows themselves better than anybody else, right? You know yourself. So if you can work with that broad word and you make things work, then that is all that matters, right?
Right.
For most people, though, that just isn't quite enough.
Yeah.
I have 30-day goals, and then I have 90 days goals, and I have 5-year goals.
What's kind of one of your short-term goals? One of yours?
Right now is I've been tasked to come up with an article series for a magazine on something that hasn't been done before. So my 30-day goal is with this broad topic, how do I come up with 5 articles under this broad topic that, one, can be photographically told, 2, can be done within the budget. I mean, if I had an unlimited budget, there'd be no issues, right?
Right.
And most importantly, 3, it actually works. It's like you wanted to go photograph the rocket. You had all the ideas, but
it has to work.
It has to work, right? So that's, in that 30-day goal for me wasn't one I actually had. It came from outside source. Outside source had money. And so my goals will go in the back burner because this is a paycheck. So now I have 30 days to come up with the idea, generate the first of the 5 to see if the series will fly, right?
And that's a good point, because that's where sometimes with your goals, you have to fit them into other people's goals as well. That's even with this shot. I had to run this shot by my editor first to say, hey, you realize if I do this and risk this, because this was like the small percent, I'm going to lose that shot. I'm going to lose other shots. We are going to knock out other shots that we could get. and he had to be okay with it. So even though it could have been my goal, it might not have been in my plan.
Correct.
Because it wasn't possible because, hey, he's the one footing the bill.
I mean, so far, most of the goals have been business oriented.
Yeah.
Right. So I have personal goals and business goals that while you might think are interwoven, they're actually, in a lot of ways, totally separate. It's the juggle thing about life too.
Yeah. Totally.
A short-term goal, mastering a strobe, John has on here.
Yep.
Mastering a strobe is the same as trying to master light. And I can't imagine doing that. It's a continual process. I mean, I've been using Flash for 40 years. I would never say I've mastered it.
So I think with that, yeah, maybe the thing with like, don't set especially with your short-term goals, don't set your short-term goals too high, right?
Too high or mastering a strobe.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Mastering a strobe is like, it's very high, especially, and he did say it helped make my clients more comfortable in front of the camera. Like that's a good goal. The mastering a strobe, maybe just getting comfortable, like you're getting comfortable with your clients and helping them get in front of the camera. Maybe you need to just get comfortable using a strobe.
But maybe in a particular setting, like in a living room or outdoors, start with a simple, smaller bite at mastering a strobe in just a smaller genre and one flash, and then working from there.
Yeah, because you're going to get to the point, like I know even with that, I guarantee you, if you, like for example with that is like, if you watch some of Scott's classes on lighting, I mean, I've watched his classes, like I had a thing of, I never used strobe. I've used it and all that stuff. But I had a shot that I wanted to get. I watched a couple of his classes and I just had to get good enough to get the shot in my head out.
Correct.
But now I wouldn't say I've mastered strobe, but I know strobe well enough to where I can do what I need to do with it.
And you're taking your first step. Yeah.
And then you go, okay, next time, I want to take it some farther, so I'm going to add another light. I'm going to McNally this up, right? So I'm gonna just add another light.
Never heard it that way, but Seer Amy was to put together a portfolio for Moose to review. Did that in Vegas, so now I'm ready to a project on the endangered piping plovers. I mean, that's a killer project idea. And to do that, there's got to be a number of parts of that goal you're going to have to accomplish. As soon as you start about endangered species, there's some hoops you have to jump through, especially to get, the images tell a story. Mm-hmm. But that's a great long-term project. It's got some very specifics in it because the species, the location. There's a lot of easy homework you can do that will lead you to more difficult homework. So I think, Amy had a killer portfolio. I just loved her stuff. So I think that's great.
Right. And so I think that's where we're kind of going with the goals. We're going to go to a break here in a second, but really at the end of the day, with the goals, like where can we get specific with them, to where it can be something that we know will lead us to the next goal, right? Mm-hmm. So there's got to be steps in those goals. So when we come back, we're going to continue talking about goals. We're going to have some giveaways on the show. So join us back here in just a few minutes.
So when I first saw her, I was working at the church and she was up being baptized. And I told my friend who's standing next to me, John, I said, I'm going to get to know that girl. So it took a few months to get screw up my nerve to actually ask her out. So that's my girl. My dad was a World War II and Korean vet. My mom ran a Christian nursery school and had gotten her degree in psychology. Arts were in the house, so my dad built furniture. He did a lot of stuff with wood. So I was very fortunate. My dad wanted to make sure if I had an inkling, that I would sample it at the very least. So from riding bikes to playing the banjo to whatever it is, I decided I thought at the moment I wanted to try. My dad did everything he could to make sure I could try it. So I've always known photography. It's not like I picked up late in life. It's always been there. I tried the art thing. Yeah, it didn't turn out well. Photography's always been in the family. Just I was the first one. I was the black sheep, decided to make a living out of it. All of this is, if you don't have a passion for it, no matter what, you don't get through it. You have a passion for it. It all, especially at the end, is all just part of the game. It's part of the process. Whatever ingredient you have in your photography, you don't have passion, you're toast. You've got to have that passion. That's what keeps you going. whatever it is that tells me this is the thing that's important right now that I need to get done, that really is a driving force. Is that in my head somewhere it ignited, this is what it is. He's got to get done right now. It's not like you can put it off to next week or next year. It's like now. And that drive, until it's done, kind of just eats me up. I just go, go, go.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by Platypod, the world's most compact tripod base.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of The Grid by subscribing to Apple's podcast app or iTunes. It's free, and we even have a special audio-only version, too. So sign up today.
Weird.
That's quite the price tag.
Yep. So, all right, so we're back, and we're talking about our goals. We had a couple of questions come through, so just wanted to answer a couple of questions. Peter had a question for you, Moose. Do you shoot RAW or JPEG for birds in flight?
I'm always shooting RAW. And the reason's simple. If I want to print it.
No matter what bird it is.
No matter.
Yeah.
I
do the same thing with the birds I shoot. All RAW.
The rump bump bump.
Yes.
Okay. Cover that point.
Yeah. There you go. RAW is what you shoot.
I think David's got a great question.
Do you think that so I think sometimes people think about the JPEG because they're thinking for more speed. It's I guess that would be. I'm trying to think sometimes why would you shoot in JPEG other than your speed and your buffer, for that application?
Well, what, for example, if your end use is strictly for the web?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if
that, I shoot RAW because if I'm going to make a print, I can make a print in a couple minutes from a RAW file, where JPEG is going to take a couple hours just to deal with the artifacts of a JPEG.
That's true.
For the size.
Yeah. No, just curious. I was curious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave Gibson says, I want to be a sports photographer. Any tips?
Yeah. Watch all of Dave Black's stuff on Kelby One. I mean,
absolutely.
Dave answers everything. It's all there.
And if you're any other type of photographer shooting motion, action, that stuff, I've learned tremendous amount from Dave Black that I've applied.
God, yeah, he's very generous.
You don't have to just be a sports photographer. Now, another thing, if you want to be a sports photographer, just like anything, you got to start somewhere. And that's where set a goal to do something that's not unachievable. For example, setting your goal, I want to shoot my first game at a college or NFL game. It's probably not going to happen. Go to your local high school, go to your local newspaper, say, hey, can I start just covering stuff for you just so I can get some experience, get some experience under my belt, kind of try this thing out, get good enough to where you can go to a major university or even a minor university and go, hey, can I cover your guys' sporting events?
But most sports photographers specify in certain, football, baseball, something like that.
This is true.
They're not like, I shoot water polo every way. I don't shoot all of it. And they tend to start with specialization with the thing that they really love. They either follow baseball, football, whatever. And that's a good point. It's really important to follow that passion in this whole goal process.
Yes, because you have to know your subject. And you know what? It's like that with wildlife, but sports, it's just the same. If you don't know how football works and you want to go shoot football, I guarantee you will be 10 times better when you start understanding the game. But you start understanding how the quarterback's going to react. And certain quarterbacks react on certain other teams, but different than other teams. And certain running backs do certain things. And understanding, it's going to be a blitz. Ooh, it might be a sack. You got to start predicting these things. So same thing with baseball. You got to know, okay, well, what kind of plays are they going to turn here and stuff like that.
At the same time, that passion's got to push you through the times when you don't succeed. I mean, just because you have a goal doesn't mean success. So that passion keeps you moving forward through that.
Cool.
So
All right.
Will's got a huge question here.
Yeah. Well, I think he's talking about a goal.
Yeah, long-term goal is to be a sports or wildlife
And he just
photographer,
asked a question.
or sports or wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge swing of the pendulum.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy both quite a bit.
It matters. Some sports teams can be pretty wild.
Virginia. Wow.
So basically, he's asking, would
Trying to helpful with that. That's a huge set of questions there. First of all,
he's asking, Moose, what do you recommend for getting into wildlife? Maybe just answer that question. What do you recommend for getting into wildlife?
Seriously, I'd watch my wildlife class from my backyard. That's where I literally started, because
you started in your backyard. Yeah.
Because
I think most people start in there. Most people would start in their backyard. Yeah.
Actually, I find most people don't.
Should. That's the key word.
Right. Should, because they think, they should go to Africa or Alaska, something like place like that. But that's a lot of time and money that
build up to that.
Yeah, you don't want to go to those expensive places to learn. You want to learn someplace that's inexpensive. And your backyard is really the best spot. The advice I got when I started off was to make the uncommon from the common. And most people don't photograph the little birds in their feeder because everybody sees them. But in the marketplace, the one picture everybody needs is the bird in your feeder, because nobody photographs them, because everybody thinks everybody else does.
Well, and like you said, you were in, you say, I forget, the comment went away, but it was Virginia.
Yeah.
You were from Virginia. Eastern Shore of Virginia, a lot of shorebirds
Lots
out there.
of great stuff. Chesapeake Bay, all
you got
that.
wild ponies out there on...
Just down the islands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
North
islands.
Carolina. Yeah.
You have interior, you've got the mountains there. So you've got stuff around you that's pretty local that you could start working with.
Correct.
To get into wildlife. That way, when you do get on a plane and go to Alaska, or you do get on a plane and you go to Africa, you've got you've got the confidence that you're going to walk away with something that you're going to be happy with.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Cool. So Kathy's saying, my goal is to have several great stock images. I love to see my images in print. That's my long-term goal. My short-term is find is to finish my last shoot from our vacation. Yeah. So sometimes it's just, you got to get through what you've done, but then, sometimes even with those longer-term goals, I forget it went away there, but stock images. I mean, I think, yeah, definitely getting your stuff up on stock. It's a great way to make money if you have good stuff,
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Mike has a goal my goal is to get there out and every day and practice.
And I think it's a great goal.
That's a great goal.
That is
honestly, if you
point blank doable.
If you can do that, like I've seen some people do that. I've seen, I had a couple friends who did this, who did the challenge to themselves to where I am going to go make a photo every day for 1 year. And I make a photo. They're going to I'm going to take a conscious effort to go out at a good light or a good subject. Like I'm going to go it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's got to be a good photo. It can't just be a snapshot. I was too lazy today. I walked out. I drive to the beach this day, or they go to find a wildlife reserve or something and you saw it on their Instagram. They were like day 47, day 54, and if you look at from day 1 to day 365, you can see the progression. Why?
That's cool.
Because they're practicing and they're applying and they're practicing and they're applying and they're keeping on going. And that will raise your skills more than anything. It's just getting out there and practicing.
Well, and keeping it even simpler, I have a dear friend, Carol, who is just a monster of a photographer, and she's 73, and she wanted to improve her hand holding. So she practices every day with her 500 millimeter every day. I hold my camera every day and shoot. And she did it to the point, so now she's rock steady with a 500. Then she wanted to go further, and she sent a bunch of us. She had her 600 f4 on a tripod, and she's doing lunges in her Pilates, so she could carry the 600 f4 up and down mountains. And she did that every day.
Nice.
So some of the goals aren't actually clicking a camera goals, but they are improving your photography goals nonetheless.
Yep. There you go. Well, guys, we're almost out of time. We need to give away a couple of prizes here. We did not talk about them earlier, but we are going to be giving away a book by, what was it?
Whatever he calls himself.
Whatever he calls himself. That wherever he calls himself guy, he's wrote a book called Takeoff. It's basically like the aviation photography dictionary or the aviation photography Bible, if you will, where it's, and then I dropped it.
Crash and burn.
It's going through, everything you need to know about taking aviation photos.
Everything. Yeah.
Right. So really cool. So somebody's going to win that. And then we have another book by another cool guy that calls himself Scott Kelby. He's got the landscape photography book. This is a great book if you're into getting into landscape photography or just needing a refresher course on landscape photography. And then finally, because this is the coolest device ever for somebody who needs a portable, steady tripod alternative, especially if you're doing travel photography. This is great when you're at places where, a tripod can't really go or it might be restricted. These things are the golden ticket, and that's
a great tool.
So Platypod Ultra, you can use them for a lot of things. With the Ultra, I've gone up to my 100 to 400 on it, so no problem.
I've used my 180 400 on it.
Yep. So
it's
there
great.
you go. So we're gonna be giving away those prizes. And look, we already had the prize winners. We have Stacy Yingling. No, never mind, Stacy. You didn't win another one. It's
Gladys.
Will. So Will Poundscar, you've won
the book,
the landscape photography book. So Will, you won the landscape photography book. Contact Christina in the chat; she'll get you set up. And then we've got Gladys Marietti has won the Platypod, and then Joe. Oh boy, I'm gonna butcher that. Joe Bajak.
I'm gonna go with Bajak. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Bajak. You've won the. Oh, I do that with it. Takeoff by whatever that guy's name is.
Whatever that guy.
Moose Peterson. And you've got speaking of that, if you're into wildlife too, you've got a Bible on wildlife photography too, called Captured.
Yeah.
We talked about that earlier on the webcast. It's definitely something to pick up if you're into wildlife photography.
It is.
But hey, Moose, thanks for joining us. That was awesome.
Erik, thank you so much.
Yeah. And
enjoyed it.
If you guys haven't checked out Moose's classes on stuff, check them out on Kelby One. He's got classes on wildlife, aviation, landscape, flash,
finishing,
all the stuff. Well, black and white stuff.
Black and white.
Yep, so all over the place.
Light.
So yeah, check it out over on kelby1.com.
Somebody might think I actually live here.
Yeah, right. There you go. And then there's his website. If you go over to his website, and there you got your blog over there and all that stuff.
It's
right?
all there.
Yep.
3,000 pages.
MoosePeterson.com. Well, hey guys, we appreciate you stopping by. We'll see you next week. I'm not sure.
Oh, it's just you and Scott.
You know what that means? Because Scott's out next week on a tour. It's going to be me and finding somebody to Skype with. Okay. Yes, we do have somebody. Ooh, we got a good one next week. Come back and join us next week. We got somebody all the way from overseas traveling over via Skype. See you guys next week.
When you need a tripod that is compact, that is portable enough to take with you anywhere, one that is adaptable to any situation, that will prove versatile enough for any shoot, and is compatible with your other gear, giving you freedom to create your own perspective. Look no further. Platypod Ultra does it all. Visit platypod.com for more info.